Thought I could count on you. I thought we had a deal. I gave you all I had. Put you in front of friends. It was me and you, for it was one of them. I introduced you to them. I should have seen it then. It was never about me. It's what I could do for you. What you could get about me, who I could introduce you to. I knew the truth, still there was nothing I would do for you. A fool for you. You break my legs, still jump through hoops for you. I thought we had a deal. 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 It's hard to let you go when I'm still holding on. Said I should leave you, I don't need you, should be moving on. This shit is stupid hard, and I ain't ready for it. Said I should leave you, I don't need you, I ain't ready for it. They weren't there for it, no, they weren't there, were they? They weren't there when she despaired to have her prayers working. She wanted to die daily, and I was 9 maybe. I'm on the couch with mom, talking about don't cry, baby. We'll be alright, baby. Yeah, we gon' make it through. I'm scared to death inside, but I know I can't let it through. I ain't know where to turn, I didn't know what to do. You gave me hope when there was none, I owe my life to you. I thought we had a deal.
Leave me not ready to let you go. Let you go. I'm begging, don't leave me. Take anything you want, everything if you want it.
You gave my life purpose before it had any. You gave me courage when I didn't have any. We were the best of friends before I had any. I gave you all I had. You turned your back to me. You set a trap for me. I never seen it coming. You had me blind to if I didn't want to feel you numb it. You left my life a wreck, and I hate you for it. I'm still in love with you, and I hate you for it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to St. John Live. My name is Mike St. John. I am in long-term recovery. My sobriety date's June the 1st, 2016. How's everybody doing? Remember, if it's not live up here at the top with the red live, you're hitting a replay. So if you're live, let us know you're in here. If you're watching a replay later on, hit hashtag replay. But yeah, I'm grateful to be here, man. I've had an awesome Monday, except me and the family went out to eat supper tonight, and I had a bad experience at Texas Roadhouse, and I didn't get to eat my steak tonight, so I'm a little hungry. But anyway, I didn't act out. You hear me? Huh? I didn't have to have a drink. Huh? I didn't have to get high. Huh? It was food. I come home, my wife fed me. But anyway, grateful to be here, man. If you're out there struggling, please reach out. Help's available. Got an awesome message tonight, an awesome guest. We'll get into that in a minute. I want to give a shout out to my page sponsor, One Stop Phone Shop out of London, Kentucky, 606-657-2750. All your electronic needs, Apple needs, Android needs, tablets, iPads, whatever, they do it all. Josh Maxey, Daryl Hudson. Check them out, London, Kentucky, 606-657-2750. Adam Larkin with GetLive.com. I'm wearing one of his shirts tonight. I pulled the old hoodie out. He's another one of my paid sponsors doing some awesome stuff. Check him out on Facebook, Adam Larkin. Check out GetLive.com. Got some awesome recovery apparel. They're just awesome. I'm glad to have a hoodie back on. If you don't care, post your sobriety clean dates. Let me get mine in here. Let us know where you're watching from. I'm in Richmond, Kentucky. And hit that heart button, man. We got 35 people in here. Get that heart popping. And let's get this shared out. If you're struggling, like I said, reach out, 859-300-1503. Shout out to Protea Behavioral Health Counseling, doing some amazing things in Kentucky, doing some amazing treatment in Kentucky. Just opened up a treatment center in Somerset, Kentucky. We have a Mommy and Me in Somerset, Kentucky. We have recovery houses, transitional living houses, sober living houses. And that's what's awesome, man, is to be able to see all different styles of recovery. It's just amazing. I'm gonna get in these comments before we get started. Give some shout outs here. We got 32 in here. Angela Nicole Aggie, welcome. Robert Martin 42121. My man Denzel Hall, Isaiah House in here. Anthony Brodus with ARC, love you, man. Lisa Marie Reed out of Indiana. Danny Van, former foster trauma saver, looking welcome, man. Welcome. He's a new one. I'm not seeing that in the comments. It must be one of my guest buddies or something. I see him smiling here in the background. I don't know. Krishan Haflet out of Indiana, welcome. We got the Jasmine's house in here. Brandy G. I can't say names, but anyway, welcome, y'all. Doug Hacker, I see you, bub. Paul Martinez from Quincy, Washington, welcome. Cameron Arnold, welcome. Mark Sanford, welcome. Who we got a Facebook user not saying who it is. Protea Strong, welcome. Tracy Lynn Markham, welcome. Mark Sanford from Chase City, Virginia. We got Somerset, Kentucky in here. Janet McClan from Orange, Texas. Whoop whoop. Okay, that's I'm trying to figure out who that is. Whoop whoop. Kickball tournament, October the 14th through the 16th. Chuck Brothers. That's who that is. Chuck Brothers. Chris Brown from Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. Sam Miller from Berea, Kentucky. Michael Trask, welcome, man. Irvin Southwood from Somerset. Amanda McCowan, watching from Russell Springs. Ashley Jackson. We have a group recovering out loud in Lake Cumberland, just a group recovering in super support. Welcome. Awesome. Sammy Jean, welcome. Don Cruz, welcome. But yeah, my guest tonight, man, he plays a huge part. He's a real good friend of mine, man. He was a huge support, a huge help to my rally I had in my hometown, Corbin, Kentucky, man. He, he's kind of with the Isaiah House, the real Hopecast, and he's amazing at what he does. I can't put a word on it, but, tonight is a different story. Tonight is something different, but hurt, habit, and hangups in life, no matter, drugs and alcohol is not always our problem. And tonight's story is about something other than that. And, John Cassandro is a media advertising specialist with the Real Hopecast. Isaiah House, he does a lot of the, if you don't follow him on Facebook, man, you might want to look him up and follow him because he is a talented man. He's one of my friends. Anytime I ask for help, he's got me, and he don't ask no questions. But I'm honored to have him on here because his story is something unique and different tonight. So hopefully, his story can reach out and touch somebody, because he has a story. And, sometimes drug and alcohol is not the problem. It's trauma growing up. It's, things that happen to you growing up. And I wanted to bring him on here, man, to let him get his story out there. And I hope you all enjoy it, man, because he's real, you know what I'm saying? And, he's just amazing at what he does. So I'm going to bring John on here, and we're going to chop it up for a minute, and we're going to get into his story. What up, John?
What's up, Mike? I'm going to call you Hangry Mike.
Yes, sir.
Brother didn't get his steak. That's a shame.
Yes, sir. I didn't get no steak. I sure didn't. I was mad. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. But you kept your composure quite nicely, though. I did.
I did. Even though, when that just shows you life shows up, man, and it's how we react to stuff. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the cook was having a bad day. Maybe the server was having a bad day. But, the point of the matter is I didn't get to eat, and, I didn't have to get high or drunk. You know what I'm saying? So awesome to have you on here.
It's an honor.
I was kind of telling people about, some things you do and who you're with and behind the scenes, what John is about. So we will get started, and, it's open to you, man. Just share your story. You have a unique story. I've heard bits and pieces, and hopefully tonight we can help somebody, man.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things I hope that I can accomplish this evening is I really connect with Andrew Hager quite a bit. We always hear him talking about blameless children. And maybe, and by the way, I want to give a shout out to Danny Van. You mentioned Danny earlier. He's become a mentor of sorts for me just in the last, actually right after the Blameless Children event.
Awesome.
I started looking at some different support systems for adult children that have come through foster care. I always say that I've come from the other side of the tracks. I was that kid that was raised in the bar. Never knew my biological dad. I grew up in the smoky, dingy, dirty bars of the 70s. And, I was always on the radar for children and youth services.
Right.
And, you talk about those traumas that we deal with, and I'm 51 years old, and there's some of that stuff that follows. And so if there's one thing I can hope to communicate is for those that are in the madness, or, maybe somebody's listening that has been through, like you mentioned, the trauma of growing through that. And a lot of times that stuff doesn't leave. That stuff takes permanent residence in your life.
Yes.
How we manage it, how we process it, how we roll it into our everyday life, I think is, finding those coping mechanisms.
Yes.
I'm a guy that wears my feelings on my shoulders. I go through therapy. I attempt to do all the right things, but there's, certain behaviors after multiple hits, you find yourself putting up barricades, kind of safe space, and some of those aren't always healthy. And so, but I do want to give a shout out to my Isaiah House family.
Yes.
Had you told me, years ago that I would find myself working in an addiction recovery treatment center, I wouldn't have believed it. But I think that, and I'll share this experience to kind of tie in with my story. June of 2020, I started with Isaiah House, and Ted McCourt, Troy Hill, two of our esteemed hosts on the Real Hopecast. Troy and I started at the same time, and was in the HR office filling out my paperwork, and Troy was in there. Had the great hair then, has got the great hair now, of course. But I remember having to go down to the canteen area of Isaiah House and had to do drug tests, obviously, as a part of my application process. And I remember I had to wait there for about 15, 20 minutes. Now, mind you, this is my first exposure to Isaiah House or to a treatment facility. And I can't remember the gentleman that was speaking at the time. But I remember hearing his story, and I remember it moved me and thinking, okay, God, you've got a purpose for me here. If you take the drugs and the alcohol and the substance abuse out of the picture, the root system's very similar. And it was refreshing to me because, I had basically isolated myself for the last 8 years prior to starting at Isaiah House, and to hear other men that were dealing, like you mentioned, with those hangups, those hurts, those habits. I knew that there was something there in the last 2 years that I've been at Isaiah House, has really transformed my life in ways that I couldn't have possibly dreamed. And through my time up to this point, being able to find my purpose, to find my identity, because life hits hard, like you said, and you really kind of question where you fit in the grand scheme of things. There's a Christian artist by the name of Stephen Curtis Chapman, and he has a song called "More to This Life." More than living and dying, more than just trying to make it through the day. God, what's your plan for me? What's your purpose for me? What's the agenda for my life?
Amen.
And so, and I know a lot of folks that are in recovery are navigating through those murky waters.
Yes.
A lot of them have destroyed their families and relationships, those that have been close and near to them. And one thing that had always intrigued me is, okay, this damage is done. How do I find my worth bouncing back
Yes.
From that to live a fulfilling life. And I look at guys like Denzel Hall, DZ, and Ted and Troy, and so many other people that I've come in contact with, Andrew, you, understanding how, because you step back and you see the damage that's been done.
Mm-hmm.
And that damage that I experienced in my life paralyzed me.
Yes.
And found myself getting really angry at God. You might be in the room here listening today and feeling angry and lost. And God, if you're such a loving God, why did this happen?
Yeah.
And we own, for most time, we own our responsibilities for wrong decisions that we've
Yes.
made.
Have
But one thing that's always been difficult with me is those that I love and cherish getting caught in the crossfire of dealing with that. I can handle my own stuff, but when other people get hurt, and they're, like I said, growing up, didn't have the best surroundings. Like I said, I never knew my biological dad. I was the product of a one-night stand, and found out that I was supposed to have been aborted from the beginning. But my mom, despite mental issues, drug issues, alcohol issues, she fought to be mom and dad for me. She was resilient. I remember one of the very first fights I ever got into on the north side of Pittsburgh. And she was standing on the porch and she was like, "You kick their butt or I'm kicking yours."
Yeah.
She was Russian, bro. So she was hardcore vodka drinking. And but there was a lot of abandonment that happened, where she would be off with a boyfriend or off whatever. I'd come home from school, she wasn't there. A lot of this may resonate to folks that are listening that are in the madness, because you get consumed within the confines of your mind and yourself, and you can't see those responsibilities and those that you love and care for the most.
Yeah.
And I got the end of the first 9 weeks of sixth grade, ended up getting put into foster care. And that started a journey of foster homes and group homes. And much love to Bill and Adrian Saverin. I don't know if they're going to pop in. My last foster family, they really poured a lot into me. Ended up going to Bible college out of that, and so on and so forth.
Right. And, and you say, going from foster home to foster home, man. And I know, I can't relate to that, but I've heard so many stories, man. What was that feeling like? Your mom done two roles because you didn't know your father, one night stand. At an early age, when you started feeling those feelings, how did you manage to get through that? Because you knew something was up, something was wrong. This is not a normal life, correct?
Right. Well, for the first couple of years, it just seemed like a gigantic field trip. That was the normal life. I didn't think anything different of it. I was that dirty faced kid that played on the street, man. I got introduced to church at a young age. Nobody ever had to force me to go to church. There was a Catholic church that I started, and one of the priests there worked with the kids and the youth, and brought me in, went through CCD. Those of you that are part of the Catholic faith, you get that. Got to go to St. Vincent's College where the Steelers practice. That was kind of cool, and recognized that as a kid. A lot of my issues really, and I accepted Christ when I was 13 years old. The first of my transitions, my first foster family was not faith oriented. So all of a sudden they got this whacked out 13-year-old that loves Jesus, and when you become a new believer, whether you're young or whether they're old, there's a new birth that happens, and there's an excitement that happens. And one thing that did come from my time of growing up in the bars, her boyfriends would always give me stacks of quarters and shove me off to the side so they can, have my mom. And I cut my teeth on music. So I kind of grew up around the jukebox. And I'm a huge music guy today, play drums and involved in a lot of stuff, music, got a couple bands I work with and stuff. But so when I transitioned, they basically sent me back to the group home because, later to find out that I was too religious at 13 years old for them. I don't know if it was a conviction thing or what. But when I went into my second foster home, I would say between the ages of 14, 16 years old is when I really started to like you mentioned, the process of the anger, the questions. I remember showing up at my caseworker's office because there was visitations that were set up and she wouldn't show up. Times that I grew up, went to court and she wouldn't show up. And I found myself, and this is why I'm passionate about working in the addiction recovery community today, is I think of the kids.
Yes.
I'll share my experience at Flameless Children in a little bit, but 14 to 16 years old is when I really kind of locked into kind of the questioning and the anger, I guess. Why isn't she showing up? Doesn't she want me? And so those years were turbulent, and they were the most developing. I think any young person between the ages of 14 and 16 is kind of that transition, because you're going from elementary school, middle school, high school, and those are difficult years anyway. And even though I had accepted Christ when I was 13, there was identity obstacles that kind of came into play with all of that. And so that ended up ending because of acting out behavior.
Yeah.
And then went back to the group home. The group homes, one of the group homes I was in like 4 or 5 times just in transition or whatnot. And then starting my junior year of high school, was attending a youth group at the church. When I went back to that group home, it was October of 1986. And this was coming off of my time of just questioning and anger. And I knew that I had to get back in church.
Right.
I knew that at that age, whatever relationship with God I had to reconnect again. And met my brother Chris in youth group. And he went home to his folks and said, "Hey, I met this guy, John, in church." And the home I was in was Ward Home for Children. And he called it a Ward Home, WART. And he is like, I met this guy, John. He lives in this Ward Home. It's for kids that don't have parents. And started out, going over periodically for weekends. And next thing you know, they asked me if I wanted to come live with them. And they nurtured a lot of the questions and the doubts and really kind of built as strong of a foundation faith-wise as I could. But there are certain identities that were established in my foster homes, but in the group homes, when I came to Isaiah House and I saw the dorm living and the situation there, it really kind of threw me back to living in an apartment with 12 guys and, everything and anything that can happen there. And that really challenged my faith. And so there was a lot of, I wonder what it'd been like had it been, had the mom, dad, brother, sister, dogs, cats, being in one place, but, a lot of placement through, and that created some dysfunctionality going into my adult years. But to answer your question, at first it wasn't until it was time to transition and I was excited about going home and she wasn't there. And so that's kind of where a lot of the abandonment stuff kind of started to seep in. There was an after school program that I would go to after school. And I hung out there a lot because times when my mom wasn't home, that was kind of second home.
Right.
But yeah.
So here's my next question. So as you're transitioning, doing this and doing that, and you growing up in the bars and them giving you quarters and whatnot, this is the magic question. How did you cope with what you was dealing with when most of us, I'll keep it on me, like I didn't want to face reality and I turned to a substance and church and God never was really in my childhood growing up, but I made some decisions to get high and let's bottle these feelings. How did John get through this? How did John not become one of us? That's
you can never tell me that there's not a God, because for all extensive purposes, I should have been a statistic.
yes.
I didn't come out of it unscathed. I had my first sexual experience when I was 10 years old. And so between that and being in the group homes, obviously there's not a lot of supervision. And so I found a real tearing and pull between November 1983, coming to the altar and accepting Christ. And then all of a sudden I'm in these situations that are, compromising and trying to live out my faith. But at the same time, in the group homes, there was bullying, there was drug use, there was, pornography, there was all those things. And a lot of times you found yourself succumbing to the surroundings. And at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, and I mean, honestly, even today, one of my biggest struggles as a Christ follower is that when we read the word and we understand what God says about us. We on the podcast, we always refer to Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans that I have for you to give you a future and a hope. But then the next verse after that says, if you will seek me and seek me with all of your heart. And I found myself, and like I said, even today, the biggest challenge I have as a believer is, in my head, I understand the promises of God in my life. But yet when our surroundings and the things that we tangibly, physically see, hear, smell, touch, sometimes can out-trump that.
Yes.
And so again, I didn't come out of it unscathed. I think that being in the bars and growing up, my mom was a chain smoker. She drank hard. She partied hard. I grew up in the backseat of cars, hotel rooms, boyfriends' houses. She picked some real winners as far as boyfriends. And one of the key things that transitioned me into state care was, and I've seen my mom fall downstairs, busted open. I've seen the fights, and one time seeing our stuff being thrown out of a third-story window out onto the street. And again, I say all of this that, again, the madness, the thinking process isn't right. It's today's society is so much about self, self-indulgence, self-fulfillment. And all I can say, man, is that God's hand was on me, because, I mean, if you look at foster care statistics and kids that age out of the system, for all extensive purposes, I should have been homeless. I should have been on drugs. I should have been on alcohol, all that stuff, ... But God.
Yes.
And so if you're in here today and you're listening and you're questioning, about faith and the reality of Christ's plans and purposes for your life, despite all the junk, it humbles me tremendously to know that despite all of my hurts, hang-ups, and, habits, that God still sees value in me. And that's the thing that keeps me going today at 51 years old. And again, I have to give credit to Isaiah House, and especially the podcast, man, hearing those stories week after week after week. I mean, we're sitting on over 70 episodes of the podcast, and time after time, there's so much stuff that I can relate to. But the thing that motivates me is that, man, Mike, if you can do it, if Andrew can do it, if Denzel can do it, if Ted can do it, if Troy can do it, why can't I?
Yes.
And so the important reason why community is so essential, as men, we have that thing called ego, easing God out. I don't need help. We have a tendency to push other people away because we feel like we're men, we can fix it. And a lot of times we can't,
No.
and so
But I like how you said that, ego, because ego, plays a huge part, in my successful madness to being homeless, because I lived a life. I wanted you to see me as somebody I wasn't, but in reality, I was a hurt little boy. You see what I'm saying? And but it took, because I thought I could conquer the world by myself until 6.5 years ago. Like, it was me against the world. You can't touch me. I'm me. But when I ended up homeless and drugs, IV drug use, depression, anxiety, the whole 9 yards that comes with it, I realized once I got to treatment that I cannot fight this battle by myself. Number one, I need you all. Number two, I need God. And if it weren't for those steps that led me to my, to the contact that I have today, I understand that I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be where I'm at, because today I live to help others, through podcast, treatment, my wife's facility, traveling and speaking, because we have to give away what was freely given to us. We was set free. We was reborn. We're happy, joyous, and free. And by you doing this, I'm doing this. Everybody that carries a message, whether it's hurt, habit, hang-ups, abandonment, molestation, whatever you want to call it, all of our stories could impact someone's life.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Identity can be affixed to, in the fact that, and you, I think you said it very well, Mike, you wanted people to see you a certain way.
Yes.
I was married for 16 years, was married 10, divorced for 3, remarried 6 to the same woman. And those dysfunctional behaviors that followed me through my childhood into my adult, life. I went to Bible college in 1989. And that was the first time that I was outside really doing life on my own.
Yeah.
I went from, my foster family, and, as dysfunctional as like the group homes were and stuff like that, it was a net. It wasn't always the most secure net, but going into college, all of a sudden I'm free to do whatever I want to do,
Yeah.
I was the guy that was involved in all the ministries. You put me in a classroom setting and it terrified me, man. My ADD fought against me, and
Right.
I maybe didn't absorb the way that I wanted to, but I knew that I wanted to help other people.
Yes.
I wanted to be a hand of hope for others. So I studied to be a youth pastor. I married into a children's ministry family, and had the privilege of working in inner city Detroit, going door to door in those families and going into the projects. And something that I've always said, that anybody that is looking to serve needs to have a time where they go to the least of these. The Bible talks about, when you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it unto me. And so my heart has always been there. Especially having gone through my time of hurt. I think we come to a point, and I think what drives people in recovery so much to build that community is we never want anybody to ever feel what we have felt.
Yep.
And I isolated on top of that. So 2012, I moved back to Pittsburgh. And when I left there in 1993, I was the happy-go-lucky church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, loved going out with people, middle of the night, let's go to Denny's or whatever. And when I came back in 2012, like you said, Mike, I didn't want people to see me that way. I had not necessarily a certain way that I wanted people to see me, but I surely didn't want them to see me where I was after that.
Exactly.
And I attempted to what we call backslide, or to rebel against God. And I remember one time going to a strip club, and I sat there for about 10 minutes and with my Pepsi, and it's like God allowed me to see what he saw. And I allowed that for about 10 minutes. I went and sat in my vehicle for about 10, 15 minutes, just crying just out of frustration, and God and his wit and humor. I remember very clearly saying, so how did that work for you? You know, tried to leave that safety net of that relationship. I tried to do it on my own. And for years I tried to cope through the hurt and the pain and the struggle and all of that. And we have to come to a point, and something that I've always heard on the podcast and in the addiction recovery community. And I don't necessarily even know at this point what I believe, but you always hear that you have to come to the end of yourself.
Yep.
You have to be willing to give it up in order for recovery to truly work. You know, we've got Casey's law that, yeah, you can force the hand of somebody to go into treatment. And again, I'm torn on it in the fact that somebody has to want to get help in order for it to work.
Yep.
I don't know if that is, I'm still navigating that. Again, having not been in addiction recovery, I don't have that answer, but I think that it really, like I said, even in faith, I think there comes to a point where God's not a puppeteer. He's not going to pull our strings and direct us and pull us and manipulate us to act a certain way. You know, as parents, you know, we love our kids, and there comes to a point where the kids leave the nest. And as parents, as much as we are fixers, you know, they have to take the bumps of life on their own.
Yes.
And I had to go through that myself. You know, I had nights of laying in bed and I would be tormented by my dreams, and I would wake up pulling my hair and scratching and screaming. And if that happened to me, I can't imagine what it would be like for the person in addiction.
Yes.
You know, craving that fix, but at the same time having that experience of, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
My mom never saw her healing. When she died, my foster family and me and her boyfriend at the time were the only people that showed up. And that hit me really hard.
Wow.
And the fact, and when I see community that exists today at Isaiah House, and like when I came to Corbin, man, I'm a people watcher, and I was so overwhelmed and moved that everybody there was like family.
Yes.
I think just even people that didn't know each other, there was a common ground, there was a common goal, there was a common drive.
Yes.
And that was a movement, and will continue to be a movement, those rallies, to provide hope and to be able to reach out, to look somebody in the eyes and to say, you're not alone.
Yes.
I had a friend one time, the most powerful words that have ever been spoken into my life. And when I heard these words, I felt like a little kid cowering in the corner because of shame and guilt and hurt. But those words were, I see you. I see you.
Yeah.
And again, I keep pointing to people that are watching tonight, man. If you're, and I apologize if I get emotional, but if you're listening to this tonight and you're questioning your ability to make it on the other side to a new life, there's guys in the community like Mike and Andrew and Mark LaPalme and, you know, people, and God, most importantly, being able to say, I see you in all your hurt, in all your pain, in all of your struggle. I see you.
That's powerful, man. I like that, because we can't hide, bro. We can't hide.
Adam and Eve tried to hide,
Yep.
you know, in the garden, and God said he didn't chastise him. He just said, who told you that you were naked?
Yep.
You know, we try to hide, you know, and but that realization that God's always there, and he's not the big combat boot in the sky ready to squish you like a bug the minute that you mess up.
Yep.
But he's a father. He's a father. And there's people that are in addiction that don't know what that concept of a father is. I didn't know the concept of a father. There was my brother's dad. I mentioned that time that we saw our stuff thrown out to the window, and I ran to the police station, which was in my neighborhood, and the sergeant that was there recognized my last name and connected with my brother's dad. He started out being Uncle Vince, And then after college, I came to stay with him and realized that this man's given everything that he can, and he's not even biologically connected to me.
Yeah.
He was military background. He was hard. I always had money in my pocket, always had a car, always had a place to live. But to have someone to sit down and have heart-to-heart conversation with, he wasn't that guy.
Right.
And he passed away the Tuesday before Thanksgiving of 2014. So I did have a short window of time with him before he passed. And, but yeah, so I mean, I had a friend that I was in youth group with that passed away. My brother had overdosed on painkillers. And I had a band that I was working with, and the guitar player was found in his basement overdosed on fentanyl. And so that's something else that drives me in what I do today. And we've all been impacted by addiction in one way or another, whether it's family, friends, loved ones, acquaintances. I think we've all had that impact, and it shapes us and it molds us. And it's ugly. It's ugly. I don't need to say that. I mean, I think everybody really knows the ugliness of it. And if I could do some small part, if I could be some small spoke in the wheel to help get that message out, that hashtag we do recover, hashtag, our slogan at Isaiah House is real hope for addiction. And it's more than just part of our slogan. I mean, it's a way of life.
Yes.
And hope we've broken down into an acronym of healing, opportunity, purpose, and employment. And there's so many great organizations all over the country that are pulling together, rolling their sleeves up, and going out into the alleys and the back streets and going wherever it is,
Yes.
to save one life at a time.
Yep.
And it can kill you.
Yes.
If you don't keep that accountability and in relationship with others that are in the recovery community, pointing back to programs like you've got, Mike, with, that again, that changed my life, and I can't wait to be a part of it next year, man. And
Yes, sir.
it's opportunities like that fuel. I think Chuck Brothers also, man, he's got, some great work happening. He lives here in Bardstown, and I've had a chance to sit down with him on a couple different occasions. And so I'm awestruck that this guy who's never been in the recovery community at that level, you guys have embraced me as one of your own, man. And it gives me hope that I'm serving a purpose.
Yes, sir.
And so I haven't seen my daughter in over 10 years. In about a month, I'm going to get to see her. We're going to Georgia. We've got, there's a awards presentation called the Spin Awards, which is a faith-based awards ceremony celebrating excellence in media. And we've been nominated, Isaiah House, as Podcaster of the Year and the Real Hopecast for Podcast of the Year. And again, you can't tell me that there's no God, man, because, I mean, we're just coming up on 2 years. And the opportunities that have opened have just been spectacular. And so that's God showing up and showing out, and we're in the top 5% of close to 3 million podcasts around the world. And so the messages that are being shared in this and other addiction related podcasts, man, people need to hear that there's hope.
Yes.
People that are listening to this tonight, you need hope.
Yeah.
And Mike and Marie and others, man, are doing it. They've been there. They've done that. They're thriving in their lives today. There is hope. There is healing. There's grace. There's forgiveness.
Yes. So let's, we got about 10 more minutes, John. Where are you at today? Like, what is John's life like today? Like I'm super proud of you. I'm awesome to have you on this journey. I'm awesome, thankful for everything you do. But tell us a little bit about what you do. Like, what do you do now? Like, I know what you do, but let's let the audience know.
Well, I've got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. I think that's how you say it. City boy trying to talk that way, but I am thankfully a part of the machine that is Isaiah House Treatment Center. I'm responsible. I work together with Dewana Reed, who's over our marketing team. But we work with public relations, external affairs, resource development. Where myself together with Tanner Blevins, we're like the creative department of Isaiah House, but producing the podcast, doing brochures, doing radio commercials, like everything that is public resource to create awareness for Isaiah House. We're doing it. I just had a billboard that went up in Eastern Kentucky, man. It's one thing when you design something on the computer and then it turns into something like a t-shirt or a billboard or a brochure. I mean, these resources are going into the hands, and that's a responsibility to carry. To translate that mission and that vision. I've had a chance to work with you a little bit, and having a chance to do that. I work as an independent consultant doing music. I've got multiple bands that I work with. And so even when I'm not working, I'm working. The creative wheels are always turning. Personally, in my life, I still don't have it all together. I still find myself, coping with memories and thoughts, and I don't know if that's something that will ever leave. It's just the maintaining. I'm in therapy today, trying to navigate those waters, and like addiction recovery, it's something that's going to be a lifelong process.
Yep.
I am not healed. And I think I need to be clear about that, because even though I'm doing a lot of great things, and matter of fact, I just came back from Mexico, had the lifelong opportunity to spend some time with an amazing couple that saved my life. I came to Kentucky, and I'll share this very briefly. I came to Kentucky in 2018 after the bottom falling out while I was in Pittsburgh, and I had some friends that lived in Franklin, Kentucky, and they saw where I was and had a nervous breakdown, was at the point of being homeless. Shout out to Brian and Cindy Gibbons. They came with their pickup truck, packed my stuff, and moved me here. And was down in Franklin, Kentucky for a few weeks. And the March of 2018, before that, became really great friends with a guy by the name of Jonathan Johnson and his wife, Amy, and came up to visit them after a couple weeks. I was staying in a room at a church that was in a warehouse, and they met there maybe a couple weeks. So it was kind of like, okay, I'm here by myself, and they wanted me to come up and visit. Long story short, came up, had hibachi. John's an amazing musician. I work with his band, and he actually was in a band that I grew up as a teenager listening to, which is kind of surreal. The men that God has brought in my life, people that influenced me as a young person, I can now call friends. And a Sunday morning, I'm sitting in church, and they said, "Why don't you come live with us?" And I stayed with them. His wife, Amy, and to this day, I don't know how she found my resume. But she got me a job working at Spectrum up in Louisville. Stayed with them for about 4 months, and was able to get my apartment where I'm at here today in Bardstown. And but it's been a process going through COVID and navigating through that. Went on Facebook, found this place called Isaiah House. Didn't know what it was. I knew they were looking for somebody creative and somebody in marketing. And I'm like, hey, I'm that guy. And little did I realize it's been 2+ years that have transformed my life in ways I can never express. And so life is not smooth sailing, but I'm gradually finding peace in my life again, finding purpose, finding meaning. In your head, you can have that meaning. Yeah. But until it goes from here to here, and it comes into kind of like the creeping black of Spider-Man, until it consumes you, I'll finish with this statement. And I've used this in speaking to youth. You can have the greatest, let's say, since we're in Kentucky, you can have this monstrously beautiful pickup truck.
Yes.
And I can give you the keys to this car and say that it's yours. And I hope you guys, this is Blue Light Special. This is free tonight. And I hope this will click with you guys. You can have that vehicle and you could be like, woohoo, look at me. I've got this great vehicle and you got these keys, but it doesn't mean anything until you take those keys and you put it in the ignition and you fire up that ignition and you take it, spin out, take it for a drive. You never know the power of what's in your possession until you take the tools that you've been given and you implement those tools into the gift that's been given you. You can have the gift all day long, but until you take possession of that gift and you start utilizing it, you'll never know the full potential of who you could be and what you have in your hands.
Yes.
And so tonight I challenge you to take a look in your hands and ask God, and I challenge you tonight, just ask God, what do you have for me? I don't have much, but I'm willing to humble myself and to receive what you're willing to give me.
Yes.
You know, and so this is not the end of your story tonight. It's not the end of your story.
No.
It's just the beginning.
Amen. And I like that analogy, man. I like that because, you know, we can have all these gifts. God gives us all gifts, I believe. And until we fulfill those, how do we know we're good at it? How do we know we can do it? How, you know, fear played a huge part in the podcast, you know, public speaking, you know, speaking in jails, schools, you know what I'm saying? But my mom always said, Mike, you have a gift of gab. And today I get to use my gift of gab with my story and what God's done in my life.
And you take that and you combine that with a heart of compassion.
Yes.
And that heart of compassion gives you the strength to push through the fear.
Yes.
You know, I've done some radio stuff, but boy, did I feel inadequate being behind the microphone of an addiction recovery podcast. And I mean, even today I've got opportunities that have been presented to me to speak to our clients. And I'm like, God, what do I have to say that these guys are going to listen to me? You know,
you have a lot to say, John.
Yeah. And Chad Helm he used to work with us with Isaiah House, and you know, Chad, one thing that he's always said that I rolled into my life is, and this is again, another freebie tonight, don't suffer in silence.
Yes.
God's given you a story for a reason. You can sit on it, or you can put yourself in the line of fire to share that story. Yes. Danny Van's one of those guys that's doing it. You know, he's been there, but check out the Real Hopecast, man. Yes. Like I said, we've got over 70 episodes. We have a new episode we're hitting tomorrow talking about workforce education and how second chance employment and education feed into the holistic approach that we have at Isaiah House, and how that plays into more than just treating the fruits of addiction. We could deal with the fruit all day long, but we're hitting the root system and workforce development, second chance employment, education. A lot of guys coming through treatment, a lot of men and women don't have that education background or that workforce experience, and programs like Isaiah House are helping to establish that to start the path of a new life for people that are in the madness. And
yes.
So, but yeah, so Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can look up the Real Hopecast and check out any of the episodes. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Real Hopecast. I manage the socials on that, so feel free to reach out and say hi if you got questions, need resources. We'll be happy to shoot that out to everybody. So.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, bro, I appreciate you coming on here, man. Like I said, you've got a powerful story. Keep telling your story. We will see each other soon. If it's next year at my rally, we will see each other soon, period. But, you know, I want to thank you because, you know, just because your story is not about drugs and alcohol, man, your story is about hurts, habits, and hangups, man. Look what you're doing today. You get to share that with treatment, on podcast. The real, you know, you're sharing your story and you're helping somebody, even though your story is not about drugs and alcohol, but you still can help people, man. And I respect that. I honor you, and I'm grateful to have you as a friend. And listen, you're special, bub. You're special. You have a gift. You have a gift, and you're using it. Period.
Yeah.
Whether it's music, podcast, graphics and designs, media advertising specialist, whatever. I see you. The world sees you. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm always here. We're going to have bad days.
Yeah.
I'm always here. Listen, it's not about what we've done. It's about what we're doing. The clock.
Whoever said being a Christian was easy was lying through their teeth, man.
Yes.
Because, like running a track meet, man, we trip over hurdles, we fall, we get scratched up, we get bumped up. But the great thing is there's other men and women that are in this community that are willing to come alongside you and grab you by the arm and run with you.
Yes.
Fight for your kids, man. If you're
Yep.
a mom, if you're a dad that's in the madness, there's more to this life than
Yes.
living and dying and trying to make it through the day.
Yes.
Look up that song, man. It's powerful, but God loves you and he's got a plan for your life, man. It doesn't have to, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Amen.
And so,
Amen. Amen. Well, listen, bro, I love you. I thank you. I'm here. Keep doing what you're doing. Anything I do to help, let me know. And I'm sure I'm going to need your help in the future. So listen, thank you for coming on here. Thank you for being real and raw with your story. Thank you for giving hope. Thank you for showing that we can change no matter what. Thank you for saying, I see you, because I see you.
yeah.
I love you, bro.
Love you too, man. I'm here to serve whatever you need me for. And thanks to everybody that came out to listen tonight. I hope something that was said resonates with you. And again, reach out to Mike or Isaiah House, 859-375-9200. And there's other resources that are available. Just reach out to Mike. I know what him and his wife are doing now is powerful. They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. And talk
Amen.
about being real. You guys have got it.
Amen.
There's real hope.
Amen. Thank you, Bob.
My pleasure,
See you, bro.
Mike. Thank you, sir.
Love you.
Love you too.
Yes, sir, John. Listen, powerful story, powerful. Listen, drugs and alcohol is not always a problem, man. John just told you, the life he grew up in and out of bars, quarters, abandonment, foster home, a lot of things. And still to this day, you know what I'm saying? John has bad days. We got to fight this voice up here. We got God in our heart, but that voice right here, the devil wants us to make one bad decision to, feed into this drama over here or put us in situations that we shouldn't be in. Depression, anxiety, fear. Everybody goes through that. Everybody goes through that. But we ain't got to go through it alone. See, that's the winning part of this. You never got to face this alone. John's story wasn't about drugs and alcohol. But he shares his story with clients at the Isaiah House about what he went through. Because if you want to get honest, a lot of us has been through stuff that John's been through. If you want to get honest. A lot of us has felt the way that he felt. If you want to get honest. So I say that to say this. Tell your story. Get raw and real. Set fear, pride, and ego to the side. And help somebody. Period. Shout out to John. Check him out. The Real Hopecast. Powerful. They're doing a lot of stuff. I'm going to get in these comments, man, before we shut down tonight. Terry Russ with Protea, we love you. John Boyd Porter, welcome. Daniel Kitchen says the best speaker I've heard in a while. Welcome. Aaron Heath, thank you, bub. Powerful story. Remember, if you're not read up here in the top, it's not live, it's a replay. Hit that heart button before we close out tonight, man, and listen. He said some powerful words that stuck with me. I see you. No matter where you go, no matter where you're at, remember this before we close out. God sees you. You can't hide. What's done in the dark will come to light. If you're struggling, reach out. Protea Behavior and Health Counseling, 859-300-1503. We have inpatient. We have sober living. We have a detox. We have transitional living houses. You never got to walk this path alone. If you're not done, you're not done. But remember this. Your next one could be your last one. Love y'all. See you next Monday night.
You ain't got cold chill, something's wrong with you. Gotta know it. You in the wrong building. Nowhere to turn.
I could really use a friend right now.
Yeah, I just need a friend.
I'm staring at my window pane. I'm staring at my window pane. I could use a friend. I could use a friend. I just need a friend right now. Right now. I'm staring at my window pane.
I'm counting raindrops, like where's God at? When will the pain stop? Like when will this be over? How come I can't stop? I swear to God, I can't stop. I ain't believing God, still I would pray to him. When no one else around, when they brought them trays to him. Like where my rider dies, it's like I was dead to him. This is my window pane, I view the world
Staring
through
at my
it.